so very much welcome your decision to allow evidence on broader issues to do with the tolls and the debt to be heard by you, and that you've agreed to pass the evidence and the evidence of strong local feeling on this issue to the Secretary of State, because I think this is very much the beginning rather than the end of a process of trying to bring about change. We've heard that we're told the Humber Bridge tolls aren't the most expensive in the country. Well, they are, but they're equally the most expensive, it seems, with the seventh. And were you to decide to go ahead to recommend the Secretary of State to allow an increase, then it would indeed, albeit temporarily, be the most expensive in the country again. And as you know, the basis of the objections to this comes down in the most simple way to the impact of £5.40, or indeed, if the 20p increase goes up, £5.80 for going both ways across the bridge, which is at a time of rising unemployment. We see more and more people needing to travel further and further in order to gain work, and to have this bridge, which was built in order to facilitate economic regeneration of the area, in order to bring families who live on either side of the Humber together rather than be split apart. We see this proposal to increase the tolls will make matters worse rather than better. And the expectation in Yorkshire is that more than 63,000, historically over the last 12 months, more than 63,000 people have registered a new claim for job seekers allowance. There are a few people who don't expect those numbers to be worse in the coming 12 months. And we are in, as the Prime Minister has repeatedly said, extraordinary economic times. And it's the context of those extraordinary economic times, and it's the context of the promises by government to do whatever it takes to get us through the recession, that makes us turn up here in large numbers, I think larger numbers than have ever previously attended one of these inquiries looking at toll increases, in the hope and optimistic that you, sir, will decide that the recommendation to the Secretary of State should be not to put that toll up. Because if the promises from government to help out in these times are to mean anything, then in this area there are few, if any, ways of better helping people tackle unemployment, get through difficult times, than to reduce the tolls. And I think that is the basis of our appeal to you. It's the legal position of the board, and their requirement to repay the debt as currently set down by government is quite clear. And we are asking you to make a recommendation in the light of the extraordinary situation that we're in. And you will hear evidence from the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce, but I think it's worth repeating what they've said. The tolls are a barrier to trade, recruitment and investment. They effectively split the Humber area into two separate markets. Any increase would make things more difficult for businesses and their employees. And so a recommendation from you, sir, to refuse the increase would allow the Secretary of State to show that he was listening, and hopefully move forward to do further research into the impact of the tolls socially and economically on the area. The Humber Bridge Board's official position is that the board needs to increase tolls at regular intervals, and current projections necessitate increases every 2 years. There's some dispute whether it's 2 years or 4 years, but fundamentally if there's an inflationary increase every few years, I don't see that's a matter of great matter. The opposition to the tolls locally does comprise all parties and all groups. It has the support of the local councils, it has the support of members of Parliament, Labour, Conservative and others, and it has large numbers of people power backing it as well. People resent the fact that, as in my questioning earlier, they're aware that the bridge cost less than £100 million to build. It had massive overruns, it was poorly procured, but in the end it cost less than £100 million to build. That we have paid £341 million in tolls over the years, and yet the government says that we still owe another £330 million. And I would contest to you, sir, that the local people, the government says this is a local issue, the bridge provides a local service. Well, on that basis, local people have paid for this bridge. because, and the fact that the interest rates at a time of high interest rates were set and fixed at an artificial level has been recognised by government. If governments of all sorts over the years had stuck resolutely to the idea that this was fixed, it was immutable, it was a contractual agreement that could not be altered in the slightest way, then that would be one thing. But they haven't. They've accepted the fact that the debt became overly burdensome and unrepayable. Therefore, they have set the precedent of writing off capital sums, of adjusting the interest rate downwards, and recognising local need. We're pressing now that the government should go further and make sure that the underutilised capacity of the bridge is utilised, that the people, particularly perhaps on the North Bank, who might be losing jobs at Atlas Caravans and the various other large employers that have gone down, will be able to seek work on the South Bank, and that the South Bank land and resources, which is sitting there underutilised, may be properly utilised if the tolls are brought down. And after all, Mr. Taylor, that was the vision when the bridge was first built. The aim was that this bridge would act as a major catalyst to economic development of this area. That has not occurred. We look on the South Bank and we see large areas that could be developed further. We've got access to ports, and this could be a major regenerative economic dynamo of this coming century. But if these tolls are kept the way they are, that acts as a dampener and reduces the possibility of that happening. I'd like to say a few words about the Humber Bridge Tolls Impact Assessment Report. It is the most recent report. It's the most thorough report so far. Some would contest that it could have been done in more depth and could it be even more authoritative. But it is the most authoritative assessment that's been made of the economic impacts of the tolls on the local economy. And it does suggest that the economy loses out to in a major way over the next 25 years or so. If it's £1 billion, it suggests lost to the local economy over 25 years, over 500 million. That would be if the tolls were abolished altogether, and if the tolls were reduced to £1, it would have a positive effect of 500 million. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that is the most recent and the most authoritative study, as I've said. What we would hope the government to do, seeing that it has turned its face against immediate action to answer local concerns, is to conduct its own study and come to a proper conclusion. What are the economic costs and impacts of the tolls on the local area? Are the agglomeration effects that Colin Buchanan talks about, are they genuine, and do they fit in with the government's own analysis? The consultants concerned claim that they used the Department for Transport methodology. It was the same methodology they used, I believe, for the economic assessment of Crossrail, which was a multi-billion-pound investment, and that seemed to work. If those who are not sure about the study, I would ask them to support calls for a new study so that we can get further evidence and convince the government, perhaps with their own evidence, of the need to take action. The key point, I think, which I'll just end with, there are many other points I've made, but I know there are so many people giving evidence, and they will do, and I know there will be a certain amount of repetition. But we now have a coalition, I think in a way we've never had before, North and South Bank, councils, MPs, representatives, across London bases, looking at this bridge, seeing it as an asset that's been paid for. It was put up 30 years ago. The debt does exist, but it exists only in Treasury books, and to that extent is notional. And the bridge isn't notional. The bridge is there. It's underutilised, and every time someone needs to cross the bridge to try and seek work, they're having to pay a toll. And I'd say to you, sir, that someone on minimum wage, someone who is trying to seek part-time work, and of course many families now, people who haven't been working, are having to seek part-time work in order to meet their costs and bills in these tough times. They need every help they can get, and that is the central message that we want to send. It's on behalf of those people, particularly those with least, that we want to ensure that the bridge doesn't act as a conduit to increased prosperity, not a bar. At the moment, it does act as a bar, and to quote the Humber Bridge Board's own evidence, they've said that we're in a deep recession, if not depression. And in that context, how could it be right to push the tolls up? And the answer is it can't. And I hope, as you hear evidence over the coming days, you will be able to put together a powerful case to the Secretary of State to do further research and then look to abolish these tolls altogether, or at least reduce very substantially current levels.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stuart. Thank you for that. Just wait. Mr. Stevenson, if you've got any.
Yeah.